Okay, so I think we're ready to start this recording for the Horizon Link Suite program. My name is Fabiola Martinez. I usually go by the name of Favi, and I am very honored and happy actually to be able to sit today and talk with you a little bit about the Horizon Link Suite program for our Janome 15,000 sewing machines. So if you have not already installed this program on your computer, the way that you're going to get it onto your computer is to use the CD that came along with your sewing machine. It's a very easy installation. You just need to insert the CD and it will give you the directions on how to install the program very easily. I want to first of all start off by making mention that this program does occasionally get updated, and the way that you can find out what version you are running on your computer is to first of all look at the Embroidery Link Tools section. In a little while we're going to go through what these different parts are, but the first thing I want to talk to you about is what version you're running and why it is that you would want to have the latest and greatest update to the program. So I'm going to open the Embroidery Link tool, and when I open it up, it comes into this window right here. It's going to have several different components we'll look at later on in this this introduction session. But in the upper left-hand corner, you've got this round circle, which is called our Applications button. When you select the Applications button, you can look at the version that is listed here. Click on it, and it's going to tell you what Embroidery Link tool version you are running on your computer. Version 1.3 is the most recent version of the Embroidery Link tool. If you have discovered that your version doesn't say version 1.3, there can be a couple of reasons why, and mainly it's because probably you have an older Janome 15,000 sewing machine. So when Janome came out with the Quilt Maker edition in, I believe it was in 2017, that program the program that came with the 15,000 Quilt Maker edition was this version 1.3. Other people are able to pay for an upgrade to their 15,000 machine. It included not only the updated version of Embroidery Link tool, but it included some changes to the sewing machine itself. There was a change to the needle bar because the needle threader, which had been historically a little problematic for some users, was upgraded to a slightly different needle threader. And along with that also came some additional feet and ruler feet, the HP foot and plate, and various things that increase the usability of your 15,000 sewing machine. So if you do not have your Embroidery Link tool updated to that 1.3 version, and you are running a Quilt Maker Edition sewing machine, you need to contact your dealer so that the dealer can contact Janome. What the process was, if you're not aware of it, was that when you got your machine upgraded and you paid X amount of dollars to get that done, your dealer was responsible to notify Janome that you were one of the people that paid for that upgrade. In turn, Janome would have sent you a link through your email address for you to update this program. Some people did not have that process happen smoothly for them, and if you're one of those people, I would just encourage you to go ahead and talk with your dealer and make sure that Janome has sent you the link or can resend it to you so that you can update your program. So there's another little thing about updating, and that is I've got my browser open here, and there is a place where you can occasionally go and check to see if you've got the latest updates for your program files. This is the Janome Global website, and this right here is the address for it. Basically, if you Google janome.co.jp and global site, it will take you to this place. There's some information here whenever Janome comes out with new feet or just accessories or that kind of thing for the sewing machine. They'll be listed here under this Janome bulletin. So you can always find out what the latest news is about Janome and the products that they are introducing. But here under software updates, my screen is already open to this software update section. You will find listed here a variety of different updates that are available for all kinds of Janome software. everything from their MVX digitizing programs to the old things like Customizer and Digitizer 10,000, and lots of different programs that Janome has put out over the years can be updated here. I want you to notice that in the Horizon Link Suite section for the MC 15,000 machine, the latest update that is available here on this website is for the Horizon Link Suite version 1.2. Now, if you are already at 1.3, you don't want or need to download this, so you probably don't need to fuss with this at all, but just kind of keep an eye out on this website because occasionally updates will come about for your software. Okay, and I just wanted to show that to you real quickly so that you would know how to look for updates if the need should arise. Now, one of the things I also want to make mention of is that in Horizon Link Suite, the AccuFill tool and the Stitch Composer tool will also have versions available to them. Stitch Composer, for example, this is taking a little while to start up. If I look at the applications version for Stitch Composer and I look at the version, this is only at version 1.10, and that is the latest version of Stitch Composer that Janome has come out with for your Horizon Link Suite. So far there's no updates for that. And under AccuFill tool, under the version, AccuFill tool is at 1.3, so that is the same version that our Embroidery Link tool is at, and so currently there are no more recent versions than that. But like I said before, just kind of keep an eye out, and maybe you will be one of the first people to get updates when you find out that a new update has been released. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm just going to briefly look here at the screensaver tool and also at the installer. I think what I'll do first of all is look at the installer. What I mentioned before about the installer is this is the driver which will allow your computer to communicate with your sewing machine using that direct connect cable that came with your sewing machine. So if you have never done this before, it's very simple. I think that one of the things that will happen when I click on this to open it is that it might not show you, because earlier I was experimenting with a video and I found out that when I clicked on it and this window came up which is asking for permission to install the driver, I just got a black screen that was actually recorded. But what you need to do is just say yes that you want to install the driver, and it will install on your computer so that the first time and all the time when you connect that cable to your sewing machine, they will be able to communicate real easily. It's a pretty snazzy little tool. So that's an important component here in the program. Now your screensaver tool, just click on this, and this is where you can customize the screen on your sewing machine. If you've got your screensaver turned on in the settings of your Memory Craft 15,000 machine, you'll notice that it came with some generic pictures that rotate through. Some nice, pleasant pictures, but if you would like to change those pictures to things that are meaningful to you, it's very simple to do. What you're going to first of all have to do is make sure that your USB stick has been formatted to your machine. You're then going to insert that USB stick into your computer. And then you're going to open up this section for the screensaver tool. And what you'll see here on the screen is you're going to have an opportunity to load up to 5 pictures. You don't have to do 5 pictures. You can do 1 or 2 or all 5. And it's up to you what you want to, how you want to put your pictures in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just quickly open a picture folder on my computer, and I will choose a picture. This is my little granddaughter. And it pops into this little window. And what I want you to notice about the window is that this entire rectangle shape is the size and shape of your screen on your machine. So the white space that you see above and below my little picture here, if I were to leave this photo just as it is, when the screensaver turns on, I would see these white bars above and below the picture. And I may not like that look. So what I would like to probably do with this is I will just grab one of the corners and I will enlarge my picture just by dragging with my left mouse button. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking and dragging. I'm just holding that mouse button down, and I'm making my picture nice and big of my little granddaughter. And then I can again, just by using my left mouse button, you see how I've got this north, south, east, west button? That's what I call those arrows. I can just drag that around and position this picture exactly like I want it in that rectangle space. When I've got it to the size and the shape that I want it, I just leave it there and I move on to opening the next file. And I can continue doing this process. Let's just say, for example, I'm going to pick a picture here. Do the same thing with it, drag it a little bit bigger. And what I want you to notice about this is that right here in this toolbar, this is picture number 1, this is picture number 2. And if I want to get rid of these pictures, changing my mind about what I want to upload onto my screensaver tool, all I need to do is hit the X and it will close that picture out and give me an opportunity to fill up that spot with a different picture. You'll also notice here that you've got a little timer where you can click the down button and you can select how long you want the picture to show on the screen. Anywhere from 2 seconds all the way up to 30 seconds. So make sure that you set that. When you've got all your pictures in order, and over here in this sorting order, you can also move them around if you decided you wanted to have them in a different order from the spot that you placed them in as you were opening them up. You can do that through this sorting section. When you've got your pictures all set, all you need to do is hit the right bin and it will write these pictures onto your USB stick. Real handy. And then the next time that you insert this USB stick, and if your screensaver tool is turned on in the settings of your embroidery machine, your pictures will start to pop up whenever your machine goes into the screensaver mode. So it's a lot of fun. You can change the pictures out as you want to, and it's just a nice way to personalize your sewing machine. All right, but I think that what I would like to do now is I really want to take a look at the embroidery link tool. As I said before, maybe in some future sessions here on the group, maybe we'll look at the pattern combo tool, AccuFill, and Stitch Composer, but that's probably going to wait for a future day because I've got a lot to say about the embroidery link tool. I want to start off with embroidery link tool because it is the section of the program that you probably will use the most as an embroiderer. And it's a handy way for us to handle our embroidery designs. There's a lot of different things that we can do in this program. When we first turn it on, you will see that it has not filled up the entire screen of my sewing machine. So one of the things I like to do when I'm doing software classes with people is I like to go over the toolbars and explain to people what the functions are of the buttons and things that you're going to see. So that's what we're going to start off with. And the first thing I want you to notice is that obviously, because this is a Windows-based program on a Windows computer, you're going to have in your upper left right-hand corner your typical minimize, maximize, and close buttons that you're going to have on virtually everything that you ever do on a Windows-based computer. So I'm going to maximize my screen. I do like to have it full size whenever I'm working in this program. And so there it is. So when we look at the screen, once again, because we've already used this applications button, I'm going to open it up and just quickly go through some of the information that you're going to see here. You can click on Start Page, and what that's going to do is bring you back to this Start Page that we had right underneath here, okay, which is just showing the different components of the embroidery link tool. Under New, it looks like a piece of paper, and New means that we can start a new design. All right. Thing about the new button is that if you have not saved the work that you have been working on while you've been in embroidery link tool, it will wipe it out, and sometimes you don't get a warning that it might just throw away your work that you've been working on. But anyway, that's what the new button does. It starts a whole new design page. Open, this is where you can navigate in your computer to find a design that you might want to be working in the program. Your Save and your Save As buttons. Save, if you're not familiar with the difference between Save and Save As, Save actually just saves the design with the exact same name in the exact same place where it currently is at on the computer. So let's just say that you are using one of the built-in designs, which is in a design folder, and you hit Save. What this is going to do is it's going to overwrite that design. Okay, so my preferred method is typically to use Save As. And what Save As does is it allows you to rename the design that you're working at, as well as even choosing a different place on the computer to store it. So Save As is a little bit more versatile, and typically I'm going to say it's a safer way to save your work rather than just the plain Save button. You're going to notice that most of these things are grayed out, and they're grayed out because that means you have to do something first in order to make them work. Your Print button has a little arrow next to it that you can select, and when you select this button, you've got some options that you can change here. You've got where you can send your design to be printed, to print a template. You can look at a print preview, and we'll do some of this in a little while once we have a design up on the screen. And this is where you can change your print setup. And in print setup, I would like to just make mention of this, that on print setup, one of the things that I always change when I am printing a template out of this program is I always will choose the color template mode rather than an outline template. And in a little while, when I've got a design up, I'll show you the difference. The color template is going to be a more realistic version of what your design actually looks like. And I think it's more accurate if you're actually needing a template for positioning a design precisely on an article that you're embroidering. So that's what's under your print menu. Under this connection settings, if you are going to try to have your sewing machine communicate with your computer, this is where the connection setting can be changed. So the USB means that you're going to be using your USB wire, that wired connection between your sewing machine and your computer so that they can communicate. Or you can do the Wi-Fi. Now I'm just going to hopefully not bash the Wi-Fi connection, but Wi-Fi in essence is a really great thing, because if your router and your computer and your sewing machine are all communicating well together, this is a really slick way to send designs back and forth between your machine and your computer. There are many people, I'm one of them, that has difficulty making this work consistently. I've talked with Janome, I've talked with Janome gurus all over the place, and there just doesn't seem to be any reliable way to make it work well all of the time. Some people recommend that you might need a booster for your modem. I've even had my modem in the same room as my computer and my sewing machine, and it hasn't increased the reliability of this. But in essence, it's a great idea, and I like the idea. It just doesn't always work easily for me, which is strange, because when I am sending Wi-Fi things back and forth between my iPad and my sewing machine, I don't have any problems with that. But with the computer, I do have a little bit of issues now and then. Okay, so back to Embroidery Link Tool. We're first of all going to talk, I believe, about the tabs that are on here. So I've just showed you the Applications button. Right next to the Applications button, this might not be real easy for you to see because my screen is somewhat dark. I've got a brown color scheme going on here right now. But this bar right here is actually a toolbar, and it's called a ribbon toolbar. I don't have anything on it right now because I have cleared it out, because when you first start your program up, the very first time, this ribbon bar is going to be blank. Okay, but it's got a little down arrow, and this is, if we click on this, we can customize this access toolbar. They call it the quick access toolbar, and it really is a ribbon style bar. So what we can do is add commands to it. So let's just say I'm going to add on here, out of this list of things that is available to me, the things that I would use the most often, that I would maybe want to have featured on this little quick access toolbar, is I probably would want my print button, print preview, and I think I want a save as button. Okay, so how am I going to get those from here to here? Very simple. The first one I really want to have on here is I want my save as button, so I'm going to select that one first and just hit add. There it is. Then I think I'll have a print preview, I'll add that one, and I want a print button, and I'll add that. Maybe the print setup as well. If I decided I wanted these to be in a different order, all I would need to do is make sure one of them is clicked on and it turns blue, and I could just move it up in the sequence here. When I've got my commands that I want set in the order that I want them, all I need to do is say OK down here. And now you're going to see that up here on my ribbon toolbar, those little functions are now available for me to get to quite easily. All right, so that's how you customize your quick access toolbar. The next thing that we're going to see here is we've got 3 different tabs. We've got a home tab, an edit tab, and a view tab. These tabs are going to change depending on what's going on your working screen. And you'll see that in a little while. What I mean by they'll change is that different things will become available lit up. A while ago I mentioned the word grayed out. When things look kind of dull and fuzzy, they're not nice and crisp, like this button here for File Manager and this one here for View Embroidery. That means that you have to do something first before these become functional. So just make sure that you know that, because I do get that question a lot from students. So under the Home tab, we've got where we can view embroidery. This is actually a embroidery simulator. So this button right here is the same thing as this function here under embroidery simulator. This is where we can have a design on the screen and we can watch how it's going to stitch out, and this might just give us a little bit of a preview for maybe whether or not we want to use a design or not. Okay, so embroidery simulator can come really in handy, especially when you're working on editing designs and combining designs together. The next section of your home tab is going to be your embroidery edit mode. Now, it's either one or the other of these 2 things are going to be functioning at a single time, and you'll see that later on in our demonstration that we're going to do. The remote on and off, this is where you will be able to, once your computer is connected to your sewing machine through your cable, you will be able to use this button to watch the sewing, what's happening on the embroidery machine as it's sewing out. You'll see that on your computer screen. All right, and what it's doing is it's just duplicating the screen on your sewing machine. It's not an actual camera that's showing your needle going up and down and stitching out your design. There's no camera on our 15,000 sewing machine. Send and receive, this is where we can use these buttons once we've got a design in our design field to send them back to our sewing machine or to receive designs from the sewing machine. Writing a design, this will be putting a design directly onto the USB stick. File Manager is a really handy thing for, right now I've got my USB stick that I typically use on my sewing machine. Her name is Fiona. And what this does is if I open it up, you're going to see here under File Manager, these are some of the folders, all of the folders actually that I have on my USB stick currently. So you can see that I've created folders for particular projects that I have been working on. And let's just say, for example, that I wanted to get rid of one of these folders. What I would do with it is I could highlight it and I could actually send it back. Let's just say I might want to send it into my documents folder or somewhere on my computer. I could also open some of these folders using this arrow and send them over onto my USB stick. It's kind of a handy little device. If I open one of these folders up by double clicking on it, I'm going to see the designs that are within that folder. There's little boxes here, and let's just say, for example, that I want to delete these designs. I could put a little check mark in them, and I can hit my trash can down in the bottom right corner. Click on that, and those designs will be gone. Okay. Now, what I like about this is when I selected the trash can, I got a little message that wanted to confirm that I really wanted to delete these designs. So at this point, I could say, yes, I really want to, or no, I don't. And I don't really want to delete mine, so I'm just going to close that out. But that's what File Manager is, and it's a worthwhile endeavor for you to get familiar with it. It can be quite handy. As I mentioned before, these tools are all grayed out, and they're grayed out because I do not have a design screen open. But the Design tab is where we're going to be able to open designs. Monogram tab is where we can work with lettering. Monogram, 2-letter style, 3-letter style. And also once we're in this section, you have the opportunity to use some decorative stitches and normal sew stitches that are within the monogram section. And this Convert STX file. Now this section is new to this 1.3 version. It is not in the 1.2 version. And this is a really nice little tool where you can use some of your decorative stitches that you have created as STX files, or that some of them that are available to you that are built into the program from your sewing machine, to create straight lines and circles, and doing that in the embroidery section of your sewing machine. Nice tool, lots of fun to play with. Under your Edit tab, And again, these buttons are going to be grayed out because we don't have anything on our screen yet, but we've got copy and paste where we can delete things, undo, redo, vertical mirror, horizontal mirror, changing the sizes by resizing, rotating the design. We can look at colors and changing our colors of our threads and our background colors and many different things. Arcing and spacing is one of the things that we use for arranging the text or those decorative stitches that we can use. We're going to look at some of these things later on in future sessions. We've got centering and cornering of designs where we can change the sewing order of the designs when we've combined various components into one layout and color grouping them. Okay, under the View tab, very quickly, again, Embroidery Simulator is here, just like it is down here. And like we also saw on the Home tab, these are our zooming buttons for viewing. Fitting the design space into the window size of your computer. These little design status and these buttons here we're going to look at, and again once I've got some stuff up on the screen to make them actually work. All right, changing colors, JPX image, and your grid size. So we'll look at these once I've opened up a design page, I promise you. All right. And over here on the far right side, you're going to see that you've got these other two little functions that are underneath your minimize, maximize, and close button. The first one is style. And if you click on the down button on here, you've got some places where you can change the color scheme that you've got going on here on your ribbons. Right now I've got mine selected for the blue style, but you can change to black. And it just changes a little bit of the color here. Silver, a little different. Aqua, so just not dramatic changes in your color scheme, but just little places where you can customize the way that your screen looks here in Embroidery Link tool. And then in the far right corner, you've got this great little question mark. If you've not ever opened this before, you will find that this is your help menu. And what this is the manual for how to use the Embroidery Link tool. You're also going to find this same little question mark in the upper right-hand corner of AccuFill and Stitch Composer. So what it is it's an online manual. You do not have to be connected to the internet to read this. And everything that you need to know that Janome has felt that you need to know anyway about the program is going to be available for you here. So all you need to do is just expand the menus by clicking on the little plus buttons, and then you can open up a topic and you can read about it. Lots of pictures, pretty good explanations, and so the nice thing about this is that there's no reason for you to not feel that you don't have any help available to you because this manual is built in to your program. Right, but these are the main tabs that are available in this Embroidery Link tool. So we've got, as I mentioned earlier, your online editor monitor, which once you've got a design on the screen, you can connect your computer to your sewing machine and watch that design stitch out. All right. Your embroidery simulator, again, you're watching a design stitching out so that you can get a preview of how that design is going to stitch. This is before you send it to your sewing machine. Editing embroidery designs, we're going to work here in a few moments. And your layout mode. Now there's two major differences between your editing embroidery designs and your layout mode. And what the difference is that edit embroidery designs, this is going to be doing a layout in your hoop in such a way that everything that's within the hoop is going to stitch out at one time in that one hooping. What the layout mode does is it allows you to create a larger layout, where, let's say, for example, you might be making a table runner and you want to combine several embroidery designs together and they don't all fit into one hooping, even if you're using your great big GR hoop. And that's when you're going to be using the layout mode. What the layout mode is going to be limited by is that it's going to use up to 9 pieces of letter size paper, 3 pieces high by 3 pieces wide. Letter size in the United States is 8.5 by 11 inches. So basically what you do is when you turn on your layout mode, I believe probably the last thing the first thing that's going to come out is it's going to come out defaulted at 2 pieces of paper wide by 1 2 wide by 1 high. Okay, and what you've got going on here is if you look at this carefully, you're going to see a red dotted line here to distinguish page 1 and page 2. How you can change this is you can actually make it up to 3 wide and 3 wide, just like I mentioned a while ago. You can change whether or not you want the pieces of paper to be in the landscape mode or the portrait mode. And you will have to choose your hoop size when you first start this project out. And so let's just say, for example, that I'm going to use my square 23 hoop. If I view this and I kind of zoom out a little bit so that you can see my pieces of paper, you're going to see my red dotted lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of paper. Okay, are showing right there. If I scroll down, you're going to see the additional 3, 7, 8, and 9. So this is a very large layout, and I could start to plop designs in here. And I think maybe what I'll do is I'll just do that really quickly. I'll come to my design folder. I'm going to open the design folder here, and let's just pick out, I don't know, I'm just going to open a folder, and I'm just going to start plopping some designs in. And just to give you an idea, doesn't really matter what I'm doing, I'm just going to pick some stuff. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this design here where I've got these 3 designs, and let's pretend I'm going to do I'm going back to my layout tab, and I'm just going to say that I want this to be 2 horizontal. I don't know if it's going to let me come back out of here. Oh, it's not going to. My layout hoop size. It might not want to let me do this. Let's move this little baby here and move this one here so we can get them all on 2 pieces of paper. I think what I really want to show you here is if I wanted to look at a print preview, and you know how I just set this up here? You know how earlier when I was showing you about your printer settings, I mentioned that I like to have the more realistic view. And what this is handy for is if, let's say you wanted to just print a whole bunch of templates out to print on, maybe you wanted to embroider a t-shirt with various designs. Each one of these, if you look closely at them, you're going to see that each one has its crosshair, which is considered the cloth center marking, to show you what the exact center of your design is. And so this can really come in handy and save you some time and paper whenever you want to print multiple templates out for a project, especially if you're using some of that expensive template magic paper that is sticky backed, because you don't want to waste that, and you probably wouldn't want to put just this one bumblebee in the middle of a piece of paper when you could get more designs on. So that's one of the nice features about this layout mode and printing templates, is that it does allow you to put multiple designs on a single piece of paper, and everybody gets to have their own crosshair so that you can use it as a positioning template. Pretty snazzy, huh? Anyway, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get a new project, and it's going to say, do I want to save the changes to that untitled? I'm going to say no. It's just a practice. And I'm going to come here and get a new start page. I'm going to come to editing my embroidery designs. And like I said earlier, this is probably the section that you will find yourself in most often. Okay, so right now you look at this, and my hoop is going to be selected here under this first section of embroidery edit. If I click the down arrow, I can choose what hoop size I want to work in. And let's just say for now I like it hoop square 23. But it's teeny weeny, so select your view button. If I want to just have it fit big in the window, I can easily hit the fit in window button, and there you have it. Or I can manually click in, or zoom out to get the view that I want. Now remember that whenever you're working with designs, that you can also just zoom in and zoom out as you need to as you're working on a project. Now you're going to see that these buttons have all become available to use. We're going to go over them really quickly here because this is still part of toolbars. Okay, so obviously you know what zoom in, zoom out, and fit in window are. We've just used those. Design list. What design list is, if you've got a check mark on here, is down here in the bottom left ribbon of your screen. You're going to see the information that pertains to the design and the hoop that you're working on. Right now, we know we're in hoop square 23 because I selected that. That's the size of the hoop, 230 by 230 millimeters. We've also got the width and the height of the design or designs that might be within this hooping. Right now they're at 0 because nothing's there. No stitches, no design, and there's no colors right now. But this is your design list information. If you don't want it, you just need to unclick it, and that, actually, you know what? I was wrong about that. The design list is over here on the side. This is the status bar that I was just yammering on about. So status bar, sorry about that, was that information down here on the bottom. The design list, if I unclick it or click it on, this is going to be where once we've got the designs on our screen, this is where the parts of those designs are going to show up over here on the right hand side. I always keep this design list turned on when I'm working in the embroidery link tool because it's just handy to see what's going on there, right? Center line, it's this very center crosshair of the hoop. If I unselect it, that line goes away. I find it handy to have it on, but you don't always need to have it there. In this color section, this is where the background color can be changed. This is quite handy for a time when you might be working on a layout and you know what color your fabric is that you're going to be using. You can just come over here. This color chip selector is now available. Use your little eyedropper, pick a fabric color, say OK, and there's my bright fuchsia fabric that I'm going to be embroidering on. So this gives you a really good idea of practicing some colors and things that when you're working on a design. The JPX image can be a little bit confusing to most of us, but what we do know about JPX images is it's an image that's attached to an embroidery design. And I have actually never used this, either turning this on or off, and I know that some of the Janome designs that are on our machine will have a JPX image attached to them. The grid, I want you to just know that right now it's set for the grid size to be at 10 millimeters. This is the same dimension of the plastic grid that comes with your embroidery hoop. So I find it handy to keep it at 10. Just because I've actually had times when people want to be able to see what that's going to look like in the hoop. So, and it's, you know, mainly for positioning and helping to get things hooped accurately, but you can change this to whatever you want it to be. And right now it is set in millimeters, so it is at 10 millimeters. These are your grids. If you want your grid marks to be solid lines, that was where you would have it as in the first selection. The second one is if you want your grids to be in dotted lines. And the third one over here is no lines at all. So if I didn't want to have anything showing on my screen, I could have a blank for the grid size, and I could even turn my center line off if I didn't want to see that. And I would just have this great big blank field. But I'm going to turn them back on for now. And we're going to open a design and work with that in a few seconds. So back to our home screen. Once we're back on home, we need to open a design. So when you select your design tab here, now a little while ago when I selected design tab, what I ended up with was this is the screen that you're typically going to be defaulting at. This is a little image of right here of what is going on your computer. So these icons here are basically the same things that are listed over here. Right now my design folder has been expanded. But when you first open the program, what you're going to see here is a desktop, documents, design folder, Windows C, etc., okay? And this is where you can open up any one of these sections to try to find designs to work on in your embroidery link tool. All right, what you need to know is that design folder are all the built-in designs that came with your 15,000 sewing machine. So when you install the program on your computer, within that program files are all of the built-in designs. So they're already here for you to work on if you would want to choose something from here to work on. And let's just say that for this demonstration, let's pick something from this abstract section. I think I'm going to pick this oval. Notice that it opened up right smack in the middle of the embroidery field. Whenever you open a design, it's going to open up right in the middle of the embroidery field. And if you don't want it there, you just always notice that the green box is around here, and that means your item is selected, and you can just drag it and move it wherever you want it. So let's say that I moved that oval and I don't like where I moved it to and I want it back in the center. Well, I could try to reposition it manually by dragging it and inching it around here and there, or I could come to my edit, I could select center, and it's going to move it back into the center just exactly where it was before. Now, if you wanted to play with the colors on this design, you can do that by, again, selecting the design, coming to the color tab right here, and you can begin to change colors in this design. What I do want to make mention of, because I have people asking me this all the time, is they want to get rid of parts of this design. And you cannot get rid of parts of the design. You can choose to not stitch them in order to get rid of them, but you cannot break this design apart in order to, let's say, for example, because it is a flower in the middle of this oval, and let's think, for example, you might just want to stitch the flower. You don't want all this oval stuff. You can't take this design apart in this program. You can do that in a digitizing program, but not in this section of this program. Okay, but you can change the colors, you can change the size, you can change how it's rotated and how it looks within that hooping. So there's lots of things you can do, but some that you cannot do. So let's just play with this design, and let's say that we want to change some of the colors in it. So it is very easy to do. All you need to do is notice it here in this section on the left side of this window are all the parts of that design. So let's just, for example, say we want layer number 4, which is this little blue section. I'm going to change it to a really bright yellow, just so that you can see the difference in the change. Once you have changed all the colors that you want to change, what you need to do is verify it by clicking OK, and then it is ready to be saved with the changes that you have made for it. Okay, over here on the thread charts, if you click this downward arrow, right now the default on this program is always going to come up at Janome polyester thread. So every time that you're working with this program, you are going to have to come in here and choose which thread line you want to work with. So let's just say, for example, I want to use Robison Anton rayon thread or Robison Anton polyester. So once I've selected that thread chart brand, here are all the different colors of that Robison Anton polyester thread line. So you're going to see that I've got, compared to the 67 colors of Janome, I've got 452 colors of Robison Anton. So you can really customize this little design as you want to. Okay, so it can be a lot of fun just even playing around with designs, and you don't even have to stitch them out. You can just have fun with them. So I'm going to say cancel, and everything turned back to normal. All right, but we are working with a large hoop, and I want to add more things into my hoop. So I'm going to come back to my home button. I'm going to open my design tab once again. Now Abstract Designs was the last folder I had opened, and in the true Windows style of a computer, the last place you opened up is the first place it's going to open again when you select that function. So we're back in Abstract Designs, and I'm just going to quickly pick this triangle right here. Again, notice it started off in the middle of the hoop. What I want to do now is I'm going to view, and I'm going to zoom in. And what I plan to do here is I'm just going to quickly make a little, duplicate this shape. I'm going to put my triangle about right here. I kind of want it to be straight, so I'm going to move it over about right here. And I'm not going to play with this a whole lot. We're just going to move along rather quickly here. Because what I wanted to show you is, back in the edit mode, we're going to use our cornering tab. So my design of this triangle is selected. All I need to do is select corner, and see it has duplicated that triangle 4 times, and it's placed them exactly around that center shape. Let's zoom out so we can see that a little bit. Very nicely, very easily, in a very symmetrical pattern. All right. One thing I would like you to know, though, is that if there were color changes that you wanted to make to this layout, let's say, for example, that on this triangle here, let's just say, back in edit mode, I wanted to change this white color to, I'm just going to quickly pick a thread brand, and I'm just going to pick a color, to this rosy pink color. All right, and I'm going to say okay. Well, the point I want to make about this is if you were going to change any of the colors here, what you'd want to do first is change the colors in that original before you duplicated it into the four corners, just to save yourself some time. So I hope that makes sense. So if you're going to make color changes, do them before you duplicate and start adding into this design. It's going to make your project go a little bit smoother. Let's say that I love what I've got going on here and I want to stitch it out. So what am I going to do? I'm going to come back to my home button, and I can send this design directly to my sewing machine if my computer was connected to my sewing machine by by hitting this send button. And if my machine is in the ready to sew mode, it could send it directly on over via the USB cable or through the Wi-Fi connection if I've got that set up and turned on. Okay, so can send it over quite easily. The other way you can do it is you can select write a design, and I could send that to my USB stick. Here's my USB stick. I just need to open it up, double click on it, and let's just say I wanted to put it in one of these folders. So I would open it. You would need to rename it at this point because it's called Untitled and it's called a Jeff Plus. And I probably would not want to have too many Untitled going into this because I like to have things make sense to me. So I always rename my files. The other thing that happens is if you already had an Untitled design over here that's in your USB stick, it would want to overwrite it. So what would happen is it would give you an opportunity at that point to rename it. Okay, so I'm going to close that out because I'm not going to write it over. One other little feature that can be quite handy in your edit mode of your sewing machine or this embroidery link tool before you send it to your sewing machine is the sewing order and the color grouping tools. Now what sewing order is we might use that later on when we're working with a different kind of a design, but that's basically where I could designate by turning this on that I wanted it to stitch this first, this second, third, fourth, fifth. And now that works is that once that's turned on, you just say, I want 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, okay, and you over here on the design list probably doesn't look any different than what it looked like before, but once I've got my sewing order set, then I turn off the button by clicking on it once again. Okay, that's how sewing order can be changed. This color grouping tool, now if we've got this design set up, you obviously know because this has been duplicated 4 times other than the color change that I made here in design number 2. You might want to save time. It might not be the wisest thing to do all the time to color group, because what color group does is it will stitch all of the same color at one time before moving on to the next color that's been duplicated in these designs. Now, why do I say it's not always the practical thing to do? Because your machine is moving around. It's moving that hoop around. And one of the things that can happen when you're stitching a little bit of dark blue here, 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 is it can cause that design, those designs in the hoop to move around a little bit, and it can mess up the alignment of your actual stitch out. So color grouping is not always the wisest thing to do, although it will save some time with thread changes and that kind of thing. So use this with caution, okay? But how does it work? You just select it. You're going to see what happened over here in my design list is it broke that design apart. And you're going to see here that all of the parts that are of similar color are going to stitch all at the same time. Okay, and it's easier to see as I'm scrolling down here. Now, this is the last thing you do to your design before you send it to your sewing machine. So you can come back to your home button. Sometimes this color grouping causes my embroidery link tool to crash. And therefore, I don't, as I said before, I don't use it often because of the reason that sometimes I don't want my designs to get out of alignment in the hoop. But the other reason is that sometimes my computer crashes when I use this. What do I do with it now is I can send it to my sewing machine. Now you're going to notice that it's not going to give me the choice of writing the design onto my USB stick. And why, I don't know. All I know is that it doesn't, but it will send and via your Wi-Fi or your cable. Okay, so the one thing about this and why I say it's the last thing that you need to do is that the way that you get out of here is that you have to come back to Embroidery Edit. And when I come back to Embroidery Edit, it undid my color sorting or that color grouping. Did you notice that? So you can redo it, of course, by coming to Edit and color grouping it again and sending it to your machine. But if you want to undo it, you do need to go home and you need to hit Embroidery Edit again, and it undoes that. Okay, so I wanted to make that clear. Let's say, for example, that we wanted to see how this object was going to stitch out. And let's say I want to do it in the color grouping section. So my design's been color grouped. I can come home and let's take a look at that embroidery simulator. I need to turn it on first of all by clicking on it. Oh, it undid something. Maybe it's not going to let me do it. Oh, it's already turned on. It's under View Embroidery. It's highlighted because it's golden color. If I come to my View button and hit Embroidery Simulator, you've got a new window that's opened up that we haven't looked at before, and this is your Start button to start watching this simulate the sewing. This is where you stop if you get a good idea. All you need to do is hit the Stop button and it'll stop and finish completing the design for you. You can advance the speed to faster or very slow depending on what you want. And this right here is showing you what stitch you're at as the design is simulating. You can skip through either by layers and you can go forwards and backwards using these buttons, or you can do them by going forwards and backwards by 1 stitch, 10 stitches, or 100 stitches. Very similar to how your machine actually backs up and fast forwards when you're at your sewing machine. Zooming in, zooming out, self-explanatory, fit it in the window. And if you want to get out of here, then you just hit the exit button. But let's say we want to see it stitch out a little bit. So I've hit my Start button. I can make it go super duper fast and we can watch this design stitching out. This can be quite entertaining and you could waste lots of time just watching it. But you will learn so much about digitizing and about good designs by watching these embroidery simulators playing at stitching out your designs. All right, so I think you get the idea of how that works. I mentioned that if you hit the Stop button, the design is completed and you are ready to come out of the program. Now, how do I turn this thing off? Come back to Home and hit Embroidery Edit. And then your machine is this computer program is either going to be in that simulation mode or in the Embroidery Edit mode. So if you get confused and you can't get out of that simulator, just come back to this Home button and hit your Embroidery Edit. Okay, so hopefully that was somewhat entertaining for you as you watched me work on that little design. And if you have any questions, hopefully we'll figure out a way to get questions answered. But basically what I've showed you today is I've shown you the toolbars on your embroidery link tool. I have shown you how to do an easy layout, how you can find some of the designs on your machine. Other thing that I might want to mention about finding designs on your machine, I'll talk about that in just 1 second. But I've shown you the toolbars. I've shown you how to customize your ribbon quick access toolbar up here, giving you a little preview of your view buttons and edit buttons and how to work on a very basic design layout in one hooping. When we were talking earlier about, I'm not going to save my changes, I'm going to say no, in the embroidery link tool, when we talked about layout mode, I just wanted to reiterate that that is when you want to do lots of embroidery designs that do not fit into one hooping. And that's when you're going to use your layout mode function. Okay, but back to what I was going to say about your home screen. Let's come back to Edit Embroidery Designs and let's just take a very quick look at where I store my embroidery designs. In my computer, I created a folder in my Windows C drive. Most people like to put theirs in their document folder. Some people like to put theirs in their desktop because those places are a little bit easier and faster to get to. I just like mine in my C drive, and I can't even really give you a good reason why, other than I would not put my Favi's embroidery folder on my desktop because I've got about 130,000 design files in this folder. And whenever you store things on your desktop, your computer, when it's in its startup phase, it kind of does a scan of all those things that are on your desktop, and it can slow down your computer if you've got too much stuff on your desktop. So if you've got a hefty design file of designs for your embroidery machine, you probably do not want to put them on your desktop. You're better off having them down in your documents folder right here, or a little bit deeper down inside of your Windows C drive. Okay, so embroidery designs, you do need to keep them organized. The longer you embroider, the more you are going to start collecting and purchasing, and you need to keep them in some kind of order. So when you've opened up this design section here in your embroidery link tool, I just want to also mention that it only takes a single click to open up the next level. So my Favi's embroidery is now open, and I've got, as you can see here, probably close to 200, I think. I don't know how many folders I have, but within each one of my folders, I've got many designs. Okay, so what I want to also mention to you is that you can organize your folders and create your folders in many different ways, and it just kind of has to do with the way that you think. How does your brain work? How do you find things and organize things in your home? The way that I like to organize my designs is I typically go by category, such as digitizing, such as dolls, different things, you know, or by the company that I have purchased things. But I'm just going to also show you real quickly that even though let's say, for example, I've got a folder here called Elsa. She's a designer from, I think, South Africa. Does beautiful flowers and heirloom kinds of work. But within my flowers folder, I'm going to click, I've also got an Elsa folder right there. And so I may have things duplicated here. But what I'm going to say about that is that the reason why some of them are duplicated is because that way I can find them in one of two places. Now, did you notice that now that I opened up this Elsa's flower folder, which had this title on it, nothing shows on my screen? And that's because the designs that were within that folder are a PES format. That was for an old machine that I used to have. Your embroidery link tool is only going to open Janome embroidery files. What does that mean for you? That means that it will only open JEF, Jeff, JJEF Plus, JPX, and DST files. Files that, and also I think it'll open the old format of the SEW, S-E-W format, which was an old Janome format. It will only open files that are created for your Janome sewing machines. Okay, so it's not going to open your PES. It's not going to open your VIPs that were from your old FOF or Husqvarna Viking or any of those old machines. So you will have to convert those files in some other way before you can use them here in your embroidery link tool. Okay, so keep your designs organized. That's why I just wanted to give you a quick run through here. And also just make sure that you know that it won't open formats from other brands of sewing machines, and it will not work with zipped files either. So you will need to make sure that if you've purchased designs that have come to you in a zipped folder, that you need to unzip them, which means to extract them before they're going to be able to be used here in your embroidery link tool. So I think I've probably been talking for quite a while, and I need to take a break. And I hope that I was able to inform you about some of the neat things that you can do at this first level of your embroidery link tool. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.